Okay. Hey, thank you, Sanaya, for the introduction, and welcome, Mayank. So it's we are already 2 minutes late, Mayank. I know Indian Standard Time, like you talk about Italian people being late in the meeting. You know our rituals. We are a little bit late, so we'll start the conversation. We will hope that more and more people join in, and I think we're also streaming this live on Facebook, I guess. So, folks must be joining in there as well. So, guys, I'm very happy to be hosting this session. And we have with us today Mayank, Dr. Mayank. I'll call him Mayank because I know him from IIT Kharagpur days when we incidentally passed out from the same batch. And I guess, Mayank, we met each other for the first time in University of Southern California where we were interning. Is that right?
Right. In May of 2008,
Awesome, awesome.
summer of 2008.
Yeah. So both of us were interning in University of Southern California and were having a good time. And I think that's where we first met. After that, we were in different hostels and different branches. So we did not happen to meet a lot, but I know him very well from those days. So Mayank, a very warm welcome to you. To today's interview, and I'm very happy and glad to be having this interview with you.
Thank you.
So, Mayank, so let me take this opportunity to introduce a little bit about the book that Mayank has written, that we are hopefully going to be discussing a lot about today, right? So
This
he
is the
is
book.
already sitting there advertising his book. Good. So Mayank did his PhD, right, from an Italian city in Potenza. Is that how
Potenza.
is that how you pronounce it?
Right. Potenza.
Potenza. Okay. And he talks about his experience, how before going to Italy, he was uh, working in the University of Delhi, how he decided to finally take the uh, bitter pill of going to traveling to Italy all the way to do his PhD. And when he landed there, what were the surprises and what were the things that he learned over the course of time. And I don't know where he's getting that political motivation, but he's also talking about Paris attacks and the attack, the Syrian conundrum, and all these political events is making it very interesting by intermingling world events with his own personal journey. As long as talking about things like all of a sudden once he's back from his uh, lab, PhD lab, he discovers that they need to evict their hostel, right? So we will discuss some interesting things, Mayank. So that was a very brief interview, a very brief introduction to his book. So his book is the diary of a PhD student, right? So Mayank, I'll begin with a question for you. uh, we have heard of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right? So how
Right.
did the idea of Diary of a PhD student come to you?
Diary actually. See, me and my PhD advisor, like we were having so much discussion always, like what to do and this, and then he told me, man, I will write a book about you. Then I said, okay, we will see that who will write a book. Then because like every day was a challenge, it was a very different, and we had something called in Italian, we had something called PhD diary. So in that we have to write our single, like each day what we did on, like in the lab. Like for example, if we went for testing or we were studying some scientific literature, so everything we have to record. And so we like I thought, like I had already recorded all the events, so I thought let it write in form of a diary. Then I got motivated by some novels, like I read lots of novels. So there is one novel called PhD Roller Coaster. So that there was one lady who joined PhD in UK. So she writes her PhD in form of a diary kind of events. Then I thought, okay, then there is another book of a black PhD student, like an African American. Then she writes about her diary. Then I thought, okay, let's write a diary of a person who is, I mean, who is a foreigner and he's in an unknown land. So I wrote all these, like what are the challenges, because when we watch movies, it is a different thing. Like there are like parties, and like people think that PhD is like all this going abroad is fun. But when we actually are doing it, and then we are facing with so many problems, like for example, in Europe, like they don't speak English. Like they even, I mean, if for example, Italy, they speak Italian only, and then no one wants to even speak English because they consider it as an inferior, and then they have some problem with the British. So if you speak English, then you are like slave of British. So, and then this kind of things were happening. So like many times you are just like invited, and then you are just neglected, like in all the. So I try to like touch on all these issues, but in a funny way, like because I still need the recommendation from my PhD advisors. So I just changed the name of the advisors, but more or less whatever I have written is like a true story. So I got motivated, and also to help other Indian students also, so that they know that because if you see the title, it is like Diary of a PhD Student, to be or not to be.
Hmm.
So that they can answer that if they want to do PhD, or they are happy with the life, because from doing a job and transitioning to a PhD, because you are not receiving any money,
Hmm.
like not there is not saving,
Hmm.
then your friends are like so ahead, they are getting married and they are buying cars, houses, and you are still a student. So it's like it's a difficult thing, like and I have touched all these issues just to be like, so that people can feel like themselves, like what they are getting into, because 4 5 years of research is
Hmm.
like not a very easy decision.
So today, right, Mayank, we have a lot of students with us here in Zoom as well as in Facebook,
Okay,
and
okay,
most of them are engineering students, right? And most of them again are doing bachelors.
okay,
So
okay.
if so, and so by the way, students or whoever are in our audience today, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. I would love to take your questions and ask Mayank, but I will ask a question on their behalf. Okay, Shavik, good to know. So we also have school students, looks like.
Oh, nice.
Everybody is welcome. So if Mayank, if I have to ask you one tip that you want to give to Indian students who are traveling to Italy, or for that matter, any European country, what would that be?
That tip should be that please at least learn the basic language wherever they are going, because yeah, without language you will have so many problems. Like I had so many problems because I was not speaking Italian. So
Mhm.
at least do a basic course, or buy a book. And I joined PhD in January 2014, and February was my birthday. So my PhD advisor gave me gift as this Italian language book only. So it is better to have that book before than someone giving you.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense, Mank. You have put in some Italian sentences, right, in your book, like after you took the Italian classes, like the basic conversation that how it would
Right, right.
go about, right? But tell us one thing: how difficult is it for example, what did it really take for you to learn Italian at least to a basic degree?
Actually, see, for Indians, it is very difficult, because the thing is that there is something called like Italian language is more similar to Spanish, French, and in that Italian course, there were some students from France, Spanish, and they were so much like quickly picking up the Italian. and for us it is very difficult because we don't know any languages. For example, if I speak Hindi, then for me maybe Bengali and like Punjabi are easy. So same thing like, but for me completely different languages is very difficult. For example, I will give you some like very simple examples. Like hard work is called in Italian duro lavoro, like completely different. Like eating is called mangiare.
Hmm.
Good evening, buonasera. I mean, like every word is like no relation with like English at all. So it
Hmm.
becomes very difficult,
Hmm.
and pronunciation is also very difficult. I mean, I really had so much problem
Hmm.
like understanding even pizza. I could not pronounce the way they were saying, and every like PhD, it's called doctorando in the doctorando di ricerca. So it is not ricerca, it is like pronounced like every like it
Hmm.
was very difficult for me to
Hmm.
pronounce. And then and when I joined PhD, so more or less everyone's topic was decided, like what they want to work on
Hmm.
for 3 years. And one year I was like without any project,
Hmm.
and it was becoming like so embarrassing to
Hmm.
come in every meeting
Hmm.
without any proposal, or like I could not fix the project. But luckily my birthday was again very lucky for me. So during my 2015 birthday in February, then my advisor came to me and he said, I have another gift for you. Then he came up with some railway tunnel drawings.
Hmm.
Then they said that we have got the project from the Italian railways, and since you are familiar with both structural and geotechnical engineering, it's like it's a branch of civil engineering both.
Hmm.
So yeah, you are the in charge of the project. So from an unknown person who was the like most what you call like underdog, yeah, I became the most important person in the lab. So I was working with the Italian railways and we were doing inspections. So in more or less I had the most important project of the university
Awesome.
at that time.
Awesome.
And uh,
So Ajit here has a very good question. But Ajit, hold on for a second. I have a slightly, a question on the casual front. And let me put it, then I'll definitely come to your question as well. So, Mayank, you talk in detail about Italian fashion, the famous Italian fashion, like Italian shoes and
right,
Italian
right.
dresses, right? So, who doesn't know them, right? But then you also talk about Indians typically are not so much fashion aware, right? Like when we go, we probably just put on our sneakers, probably follow American fashion more than the classical Italian fashion, who always wear leather shoes and
Right,
blazers
right.
and right. So what's your tip to Indian students who might possibly land up in Italy or Europe in general?
No, I mean, see, like it's like there are some things which were very new. For example, I joined a gym there. So
Okay.
like gym, like what we do in India, we just like dress up, go to gym. But there I came to know that to enter a gym, you have to change your shoes. You have to take a different pair of shoes which are different from the which you are wearing. And you have to bring like all the things. So like all these things were new to me. I was like, okay, like whatever we do. And then I mean, and regarding fashion, like everyone was so particular about fashion, and they had proper winter coats. And we are like always in the hoodie because it's not so much cold there. And so many things I face in the fashion. And so slowly by slowly I learned a lot. Okay, this is the fashion sense there, that we have to be, dress up very properly, otherwise people won't even like care to talk so much also. So
Awesome.
fashion I have touched a bit in the novel also, fashion, food, everything.
Yeah, he's talking about pizza and he's talking about a lot of different things, like, right? So we have got a question, a bunch of questions, in fact. So I'll take them and we'll come back to your Italian life a
Oh,
little bit
sure, sure.
later, right? So, asking the question from Ajit. This is from Ajit. Which exams are required to apply for PhD in Italy?
In Italy, actually, you mainly need TOEFL, one English exam you need, and in every uh, university there is something called call for PhD. So it is on cycles. Like my PhD cycle was 29th, so it was 2014. So every cycle, so maybe now it is 32nd cycle or something. So every cycle there is a, for example, if there are 10 posts, so one is for foreigner. So that post you have to apply. That same procedure. You have to submit your mark sheets. But only problem is that in Italy, once you are admitted, like they take your online interview, and so you have to legalize your documents from Italian embassy. So it is called as declaration of value. It means that whatever you have studied in India is equivalent to, let's say, 18 years of education. So that only thing you have to do. And Italian universities in general, Europe, do not require GRE. They mainly require TOEFL or like any English exam, IELTS.
Awesome, awesome.
And
so,
then
guys,
and then of course, Pramit, these letter of recommendation, and it is good that when you are applying for PhD to have done some research. For example, some conference paper, if you have figured out, it will really help, because competition is very tough these days. So
sure, sure.
So,
So by the way,
sir,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Is it?
sir,
Was
I
it?
want to ask one question.
Sure.
Sir, I want to ask that we should do our PhD right after our masters, or we should take a break and then we should after some breaks and we should do PhD.
This it is better to have a, like, some experience, but not so much experience, maybe a couple of years, but not more than that. For example, if you are a civil engineer, then it is better to have some site experience. Depending on your branch, some experience is okay, but if you get a scholarship, then you should join immediately. Then you should not wait for your experience.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayank. So this is a question from Ritoban. Ritoban, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but tell me if I'm not. So Ritoban is asking how relevant is PhD for somebody. So I'll rephrase your question, Ritoban, slightly. So after doing a PhD, Mayank, if we want to, if a student wants to do some work in the private sector, what are the possible options?
Actually, I have many friends who did their PhD and they are working in the company or like private sector only. Yes, they can be leading in R&D team, and many companies also take PhD students, like data scientist. Like there are many options. Because I had some friends, like who joined some company only. They are working in the private sector. There are options, but generally what happens is that, like, when you are in so much academics, like always you are like reading and then teaching something, then people try to, because see, academics is comparatively like a job which you will be more free, like more independent, if you see, because you design your own lab, like and your students, so people like more flexibility, so they join the academics. But private also, there are many people. And in IIT Kharagpur, there was a professor that then he did his PhD from US, and then he worked 10 years in finite element modeling, that Abacus. So maybe some people know that Abacus software. And then after working 10 years, he joined IIT Kharagpur as an associate professor or whatever he joined. that exact post. So yes, many people work in the company before joining. So it is up to you actually.
Definitely. I
But,
think,
because
yeah.
you know that we had our classmate, if you remember, Pramit, Anvesh Kumravalli.
I know Anvesh. He did research and now he's an engineer in Google.
Right, right. So he did his PhD from Carnegie Mellon University, and now he is an engineer. So he's like from 5 years he's engineer. He's
Hmm.
not in academics.
Hmm.
He's in Google or something.
Yeah. So Mayank is talking about another very bright student from our batch from IIT Kharagpur who did very good research in Carnegie Mellon, but he changed back to becoming an engineer from his track. At the same time, there were many other very bright researchers, like a very dear friend of mine, right? Who, in fact, there are a bunch of them who
Right.
have become professors. And in fact, probably I missed to uh, say this in the introduction, but Mayank himself is a professor in IIT Bhubaneswar. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's good, right? So definitely there are a lot of opportunities in public as well as private, but typically in research and academics. But
And you know that Pramit, like whoever is interested in PhD, it is better to do it fast, like at a young age, because once you start earning, then your mind is like it is fixed on earning. Then you won't get any opportunity. Then it is marriage and so many things. So whoever wants to do, and you never know that. For example, many people get bored of the private job because it is so intensive, then they want to switch to academia. But now you know that government of India is saying that now PhD is a requirement for the assistant professor. So before it was not like this, but now you need a PhD to teach in the universities. So if someone is interested, then it is better to do before.
definitely, and I totally second that. If somebody is intensely interested in research, it's always better to go for a research just after your bachelor's or master's, so that you continue with the flow, as opposed to if you do a context switch, then switching back to academics might reduce the efficiency a little bit, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
so with that, right, I'll go to another question from Shobhit. He is asking what opportunities are there after PhD. Shobhit, I guess you got a sense of the opportunities that Mayank talked about. But if you have any specific question as a follow up, please write it down in the chat box so that we will ask Mayank. Okay. Suresh is asking. Uh,
Mhm.
what are some metrics to assess your progress in PhD? Okay, I think it's a good question. As in,
Actually,
while you're doing, I remember an incident from your book, Mayank. Like, so there was this some regular sign that you had to get
right,
from
right.
your professors, right? And you had two professors. You say that one of them gave signs like really easily, but the other actually asked about where you are in the
Right,
project
right,
and
right.
all of that. So yeah, how do you yourself measure yourself objectively apart from getting signs?
See, there are different kind of matrices who will try to keep you on track. For example, every 2 months you have to take the signature of your PhD advisor for the scholarship. So whenever you go for the signature, so if your PhD advisor is signing, so it means that he is giving you, let's say, 2,000 euros. Then he will ask you some questions that how's your progress. So that will even if you are not working, it will put you under pressure. Then, like, psychologically, when he signs your form, so this is not this is not very easy. Like, I have faced this, and like every 2 months I have to go and sign, and then when he signs, then he will ask you so many questions that how is the project going, how you are doing with the courses. And then every year there is a PhD presentation in front of teachers board. And that presentation, if you fail, then they might remove you from the PhD course. And I had this presentation in the first year, and everyone is presenting their topics. Then I thought, like, when these people are doing this much work, they had publications and I don't even have a topic properly. Then but from the second year, I improved then I saw others that how they are doing with with their topics. And you know that there will be so many meetings, and then this meeting, monthly meeting with the advisor, with the collaborators who are paying you, with the project people. So you will get involved. Like once you come to the office at 9:30, and there in Italy, when you come, then you have to say like good morning, like buongiorno to your professor. So he knows that you are in the office. And when you go at 6:30 or 7, then you have to say like buonasera, like good evening. So you have to be there all the time working. And then like there is immense pressure always, like it is not. And then when you are doing lunch, your colleagues are talking about conferences and their publications. And then you are just sitting, and then like you will work like. And they will constantly evaluate with some matrices, publications. You have to submit your progress report. You have to submit your what diary of the record of each day. So yeah, they will like they have their mechanism in place to keep
Suresh,
you working.
don't get too casual. If you ever go, it's there are proper mechanisms in place to measure your progress. So not just you, but there are a bunch of other folks measuring your progress and giving you checks of $2,000, right? So with that, so Suresh, if you have any follow-up question, do ask. So with that, I'll go to another interesting question by Akhil. He's asking, is there any tuition fee for PhD? I know we understand you get a check, you get something, but is there also a tuition fee that you pay?
Actually, in Europe, it is very good. European universities do not charge a fees. So their education system is different. They are not like to what you call like they make sure that students are they don't have any like financial burden. So they offer a full waiver of there is no tuition fee at all. I mean, I didn't pay, and as far as I know, European countries they don't have tuition, and rates are very less. Food is almost 25% of the cost. So, like I used to pay like €3 for a food for a three-course meal. I used to eat in the Mensa, and if I don't have the card, that same meal will cost me like €15, 15 or 12 to €15. So that was €3. In that, I used to get coffee also, and then like three course. It was pasta with like soup, and then bread with cheese, then vegetable like fruit. So they have a very good like they really take care of students, and they are really concerned about that. It is not that we are doing and then we are suddenly out of so much loan is there. So they really
Hmm.
care about their students.
Hmm. So
Health
that's a
insurance
very
is
good thing.
health
Yeah,
insurance is like nothing there. Like 10,000 rupees for a whole year, and you get a personal doctor also. So
awesome.
I got once tonsil, then I like 2 3 times I used it, and it
Hmm.
was very good.
So as compared to the US, let me talk a little bit about the US. I haven't gone for higher studies myself, but many of my friends have, and I have gone there many a times after working. Right. So in US, on the other hand, medicine or hospital charges, or even just the insurance for it is somewhat bulky. And on top of that, right, especially for masters, unless you have a very good scholarship available to you, it is expensive. But for masters, people, right, they do uh, teaching assistantship or research assistantship, and they are able to manage. So many of my friends have gone there without like proper scholarships, but they have been able to manage. So it's still manageable, but it's definitely not dreamy as it is in Europe, where things are almost free, and on top of which you get a good stipend. The food is and the hospital or medicine charges are almost nominal. So I think these are some great factors that Mayank told us about today, right? So thanks, Mayank.
Right. And US problem is the like even if you have that part-time job, but you have to pay so many fees. Like they just want, they have the system to extract as much as money as possible. Like if you do this course, one credit is $500. So three credit, $1,500 for a public university. For private, it is just double. So it's like everything you do, it is like dollar. So everything is like charging, because I did my MS from US only. So it was like so many things were so expensive, and then the system is to designed to extract more money from the students, but there is no concession in the food. If you eat in the mess, it is like $15 average. 18 dollars it is average. There is no student discount, nothing is there. But yeah, Europe, they have the mechanism of discounts, and so many things they do. Hostels in US are like $1,200 to $1,500 per month.
Okay.
And Europe, it is like 400 euros or 300 euros per month. So they are like almost half the price if you see the euro, but actually less. So they fairly they are economical in Europe.
So thank you, Mayank. We have another question from Devesh, who is asking, what is the minimum or maximum age limit to apply for assistant professorship after doing a PhD or postdoc in abroad?
Generally, what they consider is that in Indian universities is like they hope to finish the PhD by age of 30, then 3-year postdoc. So 35 is generally the upper limit for the assistant professor position. Grade 1, they have like different grades, but grade 1 is like with 3 years of postdoc experience. So 35 is the upper age limit, but some have till 40 also. This is for the general. And with some like someone is asking a person with disability, they I think they have relaxed 5 years, I think, but they have to see in the eligibility criteria.
Okay. So Devesh, I hope that answered your question. But if you have any specific follow-up question, right, feel free to put it down in the chat box so that Mayank can get an opportunity to answer them as well. So we have another question from Shambhavi. She is saying good evening to Mayank, and then she is asking if a person who is aspiring to pursue a PhD in a specific subject, and she has published a book during masters, then will that published book or content act as something of a great value? Is that going to be of any merit while pursuing a doctorate? So basically, if you have a good publication, so Shambhavi, I am assuming that the book is like in the same subject as the area where you're applying for masters, I hope. So she is asking whether that book helps, Mayank.
Definitely it helps actually, because they are looking for some candidates who have something like diverse. Like they of course they should be good in academics, but also a side activity or some media appearance or something which is different. Definitely it helps. And in the when you write the SOP, statement of purpose, then one should write about this achievement, that they already have these novels, and they have done this. So it will definitely help to stand out your application. But again, I also want that it also depends on the vacancy at the universities, and the positions are very competitive these days. So it depends on so many things. But yes, this is definitely an add-on if you say to the application.
No, definitely. So Shambhavi, if you have written a book in this related to the same subject, I think it's a great differentiator. Not very many people write a book. Like I'm sure from among all the professors or assistant professors in IITs, I'm sure not very many have written about their journey in PhD.
No,
So definitely,
everyone writes book, for example, solid mechanics or strength of materials, engineering mechanics.
Right, right. So sure, yeah, that was somewhat on a lighter note, but yeah, uh, I'll go to another question. So we have a bunch of questions. Thanks, guys. Keep them coming. This session is for you, and if you get a chance, definitely grab a copy of Mayank's book. It's very
Let me
interesting.
show you
I've read
also.
it myself.
This is the book.
Yeah.
Actually, like, let me tell you that since this book was for students, so the price, if you see that, it is 199. So I kept the minimum price which is possible. Publisher asked me 195, like is the minimum which they can go. I said, okay, let's do 199 so that like it has 99 in the end.
Awesome, awesome. So that was very thoughtful of you, Mayank. And I hope that many students will get their hands on the book and enjoy it and read about your journey, your struggles, your surprises,
Because
right?
once they read it, then they will understand that what is the process, what exactly is the PhD, what do you exactly do in the PhD, because like what kind of problems you solve, what are the emerging areas these days, for example, machine learning, virtual reality. So all these things are discussed, so they can have some idea. And because instead of just blindly applying here and there, not having any clear vision, wasting your time. Even applications in US cost, one application cost $100
Hmm.
application fees, then sending the materials, then it's around $100. So it is good to have some idea. There are some
Definitely, definitely. And I have read the book, and I can vouch that you get a very deep view of the life that you lead, the food that you eat, the parties that you go to, how your fashion becomes nicer, how you interact with your professors, right? How what kind of questions your professors ask, what kind of different nationalities. Like an incident from Mayank's book where some Italian student really tried to bully him inside of an elevator,
right,
right?
right.
So you get a deep insight of how life really is in a country abroad, right? I'll go to Suresh's question next. Uh, Suppose you are in the middle of a PhD, you lost interest in researching with the current topic or professor. What is the right choice? Keep calm, work to get your degree, then pursue your interest post PhD, or how hard is it to change topic post PhD? Second question is, or second option is change the topic professor in the middle of the PhD. Okay, interesting question. Any
It is a very
specific
difficult
insight?
question.
Very difficult question, I know.
Like I am just giving you my opinion, like what I have seen. See, once topic is decided, it is very difficult to change. It is very difficult to change. Take your time. Maybe you take 1 year, 1.5 year in deciding a topic, but once it is fixed, then let it be, and work on that topic. And then when you are doing the post PhD, post doctorate, then you change your topic. For example, in my case, I was working on soil structure interaction, FEM modeling, non-destructive testing. But post PhD, I worked on damage detection using machine learning techniques. So which was completely different than what I was working in the PhD. And there was no problem at all. And because once you do the PhD, you will know that what exactly is research, how do you search scientific papers, how do you cite them. And it would prepare you to work in any topic. It is not that it has to be your PhD topic. And people recommend that please have a different post doctorate, post PhD topic than your PhD topic. Otherwise you won't grow at all. Like you will that same like how you can work on that same problem for 5 years, so you will get also bored also. So it is better to explore. But once your topic is decided, it is almost impossible unless you quit the PhD.
Hmm.
Changing is very difficult, like unless your advisor is an angel sent from
Hmm.
God. Otherwise it is very difficult.
Sure. So, from my experience, when I was a bachelor, right, I worked with a bunch of masters and a bunch of PhDs. We were in a group, and so I was interested in graph theory, which was a very theoretical subject. So we dealt with algorithms and stuff. So I'll tell you one thing, Suresh, on top of what Mayank said, right? I think Mayank gave you a very practical advice. I'll give you a slightly different advice that unless you stick to the topic, you will not get to the depth that you want to get, right? If you change topic, it will take you 2 years more to get to anywhere near to the depth that you want in order to get the PhD. Does that make sense, Mayank?
Actually, right, because see, when I was working on the topic, then I was doing the FEM modeling. I was spending like hours. I was working on, like even I was in the train. I had my laptop on, and then I am reading some papers here and there. Then some modeling I am doing. Then I am reading some manual. So it took me like at least 1.5 year to at least 1.5 year actually to get some idea in that topic. So much, and then if someone told me, please change your topic, like it is impossible for me, like because once you have to be get in so much depth of that area. And when I was finishing the PhD, then my PhD advisor told me that now you are expert in this small narrow domain, so you know more than me in this area. So the but it is only possible that if you spend denote hours and hours, and PhD is not easy. It is not like just doing some there is a committee, and every sentence has to be different. You have to do so much references, so much reading. Like I really, like my once, like eyes were getting watery, and I was not able to sleep. Then so many issues were happening in the last year. There was a party going on, then I'm going to drink coffee, and then I'm running, writing my thesis. Everyone is partying downstairs. It requires lots of sacrifice also.
Okay. So there are a bunch of questions. We will go to them. Let's see. Ritoban is asking, how does a PhD candidate choose their guide? Okay, I have read a little bit about that in your book, but in general, how does a PhD candidate choose their guide?
Yeah, it is. It depends on the university, like what they have the mechanism. What happens is that, like, I will give you example of US because I was there also. What happens is that in US, once you join the PhD, then 6 months to 1 year is like hit and trial. You have to take the courses. For example, if you like some guide, then you take that course of that guide. Then you try to impress that guide, asking some questions after the class. Then you go, so that guide knows you, and then you approach him that you want to work in this area with him. And that is how you and many cases he will say that he don't have the vacancy. Then you switch some another guide which is close to the area, and then you decide if you can work on that. Then in Europe, it is like this. They have some projects which are going on, and many times project keep coming. Then because when I was joining, so I could have make my life easier. The head of department told me that there are some lab experiments going on the testing of soil. So they were mixing something and then finding the strength. But I said that this is not like, I would get bored of mixing and then testing, then all the time in the lab with the lab coat. I wanted to do something like complex analysis. Then that is why I took some time, like 1 year to decide the topic. But then I have one more tip, is that ask the other PhD students what topic they are working on, and go through there is something called Google Scholar. So go to the Google Scholar of your professor or who is teaching you, and then you see his research area. So if it is matching with your interest, then you approach that professor. So it is the one of the most difficult job. Like, it is your half the work. If you are able to decide a topic soon, then it will really help you. And if you are just like not able to make your mind what to do, which was happening in my case in the first year, so it will create so much problems in the end. But once you decide the topic, then you should stick to the topic.
Sure, sure. I think so. My takeaway from that, and I hope that students will also relate to that, is you need to be very awake and very alert and very proactive to try and find the good supervisor for your project, right? And go about it in a right way, approach them in a right way, show interest. So it's a good negotiation process from the looks of it.
And you know that supervisor also, for example, if it's a young supervisor, then it is he would more push for a publication, more push for work, so he's more energetic. But if you choose a advisor who is above 50 years, then you won't have so much flexibility in the topic, because he or she might be working on topic which is not so much new, so you might have some problems. So it's like a perfect balance. And also try, because try to talk to the, like some advisors are very comfortable in talking, some are like, as you know, that you like some teachers you don't like, so try to be familiar uh, with the supervisor, with the nature. So like there are so many politics, like not politics, but
So many
like
factors, yeah, so
so many
many
factors in this now.
aspects which
Aspects,
play a role in you selecting a. But I think
right?
it was a good insight overall, right? And thanks for that, Mike. So next question is again from Ajit, who is asking, do we get good stipend scholarship in all universities in Europe, and how do you avail them?
It is this once you apply to the PhD, and you know that every country has different thing. For example, in Germany, there is something called DAD scholarship, maybe Deutsche Academic something exchange. So that PhD scholarship you have to apply through New Delhi. So it is a different system. But in Italy, Spain, and other countries, there is a call for the scholarships on the website, so that you have to apply. And generally what you get is that more or less 1000 euros every month. And it would be sufficient for your living expense and feeding expense. So they more or less comes out to be 700 to 800 euros. And depending on, because some people are very expert in saving money, some people are not so much expert. So some people cook all the time, they don't eat outside at all, so they end up in saving more money. So depending on the person, but the money they give, that is sufficient. And it has to be like make sure before your offer, once they give you the offer, that they say, okay, this candidate is receiving this much money. So once you get the visa, in your offer letter, the amount should be there. But in Europe, it is not like this, that they will ask you to come and then they will take interview. No, it has to be fixed before only.
Hmm. Okay. So I think, Ajit, that did answer your question. But if you have any follow-up question, do let us know. Okay. Suresh is saying thank you to you, Mayank. And then Suresh is also asking another question, which is, do changing the research topic post PhD fetches you good postdoc opportunity? Okay. So let's say you've done with your PhD and you are going for postdoc somewhere. What's the mechanism, or what's the dynamics of changing the topic?
It is actually a very complex mechanism, if I say. For example, if I am working on damage detection in some systems, then my postdoc topic has to at least a 25% match with my current PhD area. 75% it could be different, but it should not be completely different. Otherwise, who has a project won't take me. So it has to be an intersection of your PhD and what you are proposing now. So there has to be a slightly match, because otherwise, why would any professor take you for the postdoc if you want to explore a completely new area in which you haven't worked before? So it has to be match. Let's say slightly, it should match. Because for example, if you are working in I don't know, signal processing, then slightly it should match with that area. It should not be like completely different.
Hmm. And that makes sense. That makes sense. Suresh, I hope, yeah, that answered your question. So, in general, right, I'll ask a question. So, we have a few minutes with us,
Okay.
and I'll ask you a couple of questions which I thought were interesting, right? So, if let's say some student wants to do a PhD and they want to settle, say, in Italy or say in European country, or you've been to the US also. So, say in the US, right? So they want to settle afterwards after doing their higher studies, right? What are your thoughts, opinions around the lifestyle, around what they will like, what they will not?
Again, like from my experience, like what I have seen is that people are more comfortable to settle in, of course, English speaking country, US and Canada, because generally they do their PhD and then they do their postdoc in a couple of American universities. And during their postdocs, they keep on applying for the faculty post, or depending on the like your profile. If see if you are in a branch, for example, computer science, electronics, there is no problem for you. There are so many jobs in the California, and like there are always jobs, there is no problem. But if you are in a not so much popular branch, then you might face some problems. For example, if you are in Germany, you are doing PhD in semiconductors, then renewable energy, sustainability, then immediately you will get a job, because there are so many positions in both private companies. Mostly they are in private companies in these countries. And so it depends on the area and what you exactly, because some people keep on doing postdoc, then another then another postdoc, then when that exhausts, then they go to another postdoc, they keep on switching.
Hmm.
And some people switch to company and then they proceed from here. But it is more of a question of a branch actually. And you know that being a faculty in US and Canada is much more competitive these days,
Hmm.
because once you are doing PhD, you will know that there is so much competition. No one will like ever share, like you will feel like when you are in the class, it will be like Indians, Chinese, uh, people from Iran, and continuously discussing about PhD exam, then this coursework, publication. There is also some other things also which I might discuss in my next novel. I wanted it to be positive. So many things will happen. So there is so much competition. So you have to like always be alert for find out the opportunity in your field. Do if possible good internships in between if you can get, and always focus on the publications.
Hmm.
So because you are doing PhD, and you know that I was having problem with the publications.
Hmm.
My advisor told me that you are working on such an important project and the data is confidential, so we cannot share the data with the journal. Then I cannot, then I cannot publish a single paper. Then eventually, like it's a big joke, but I had only one conference paper when I was doing the PhD defense. And even in India, you should have two journal papers to be qualified to make the
Hmm.
defense.
Hmm.
So you have to be alert that what is going on, and more or less my advice is that choose an area which is emerging, what is going on these days, which would end up in a good job.
Hmm.
Because many times you choose an area and then there is some problem, there are no jobs in the area. If it is too experimental, it has to be a combination of experimental and some numerical part. So some skill you should have like acquired during the PhD, which would benefit you.
Hmm.
So CS and electronics, it is easy, but for civil engineering, mechanical engineering, it becomes difficult, because now lots
I
of things
know.
are in the electronics. And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know. I
I mean,
totally agree with that. Hmm.
I am a civil engineer, but I work in machine learning in civil engineering. so, so yeah, you can tell from this.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Especially in India, it's very pronounced. So,
Right.
Mayank, I wanted to take a few minutes talking about the experience of your writing a book, right? Because many students are young students here are with us, and I am hoping that they will also learn a little bit about the process of writing book from your experience, right? And it was your first book, so tell us about the process. What was the best moment and what was the worst moment of your writing this book?
Actually, I thought, okay, like since see, I was reading lots of novels, and since we are always doing research, and when you think of an IIT professor, you have something like a very serious image of an IIT professor, and like always like drowned in the books. And then I thought, okay, let's we have Chetan Bhagat, like
Hmm.
who writes book, and he is an IITian. So I thought, like, okay, let's write something which is useful to the students, and it would also help me to like revise my PhD journey. And then there was a corona crisis, and then we got so much free time. Then in end of April, that semester was over, then I thought, okay, let's devote from morning till evening. I thought, okay, it depends on the like person to person. I immediately went to Amazon. I ordered a MacBook Air, and so that even if I am sitting on the sofa, I am writing. If I am in the park, I am writing. So it is very easy to write there. Then I am like, I watched some YouTube videos that how to make the plot. Now everything is available online for free.
Hmm.
No need to pay for anything. Then I was some, okay, how to make the plot. Then I started making the outline. That I thought, okay, PhD means that let's start with the history of PhD. Then I started with famous characters. For example, Big Bang Theory, there is a scientist, I don't know, Mariam, or that lady.
Uh-huh.
She is a PhD. Then I started with the notable PhD scholars. Then I started like, how do I like ended up in a PhD. Then I started, okay, let's make some chapters like first year, second year, third year. Then I like slowly by slowly I started filling the gaps. That, okay, this was happening. Then I finished like 20 pages of the novel. Then I finished 50 pages. Then slowly by slowly, like then I was connecting all the past together. Then in the end, then I referred to my PhD diary, and then I read lots of books about the PhD journey, like how to like how they have written their book. Because I don't want to be like complete like an outcast and written something which is like a joke. So
Hmm.
something which is like, and you know that in 3 months that novel is even today it was the number one best selling novel in the PhD uh,
Congrats.
in
And
in council.
I know that. I have seen that in Amazon.
Okay,
And
okay,
congrats
okay.
on that.
Then I thought that it is not that we need something a PhD in English literature to write a novel. Because once you write the novel, then you have some native speakers who can correct the grammar. And then you don't need a novel for the something Booker Prize. You need a novel which is easy to understand for the students, so that they can correlate with their, and it would help. And even if let's say 100 students read my novel, and they do something good in their life. For example, they do a doctorate, and then they get some prize, their life is settled. Like my purpose is served. At least it is okay. I mean, uh, this much effort I make. Like then I made so many cartoons. I made, then I changed the name of my advisors, because at some points we were disagreeing. So I don't want like anyone to in a bad name. So like everyone, then I thanked everyone for even see like Italian government also, because for supporting me throughout the years. And never we had any problem regarding the scholarship. They were really helpful. And even we are having problems with the language, then so many issues, but they were always helpful. The teachers board was always giving the feedback. and this novel really like for a BTech student, like from BTech till PhD and post PhD, it is like this, like all will understand and they are able to correlate. And I do not want to go into so much technical also. For example, if I start explaining my PhD topic and then so many analysis, then it won't serve the process. So I explained in form of cartoons and then
No,
so
so
many.
I agree. I agree. So the novel is giving a very good balance of hints of what the research is about, what are the topics that you are getting, what are the topics of your say hostel mates, and a good balance of what the personal habits or the learnings could be for a student, especially an Indian traveling to any European country. I think it was a very good read for me.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
Mayank, I think we will end here. Any
Okay.
last words for the audience before we end?
No, my last word is that I mean now students also need to be focused, and I have seen that people are wasting so much time here in movies, and then they have idol as like people from this celebrity world, but they should be more focused towards their like what they want to do, because eventually that would help them. Watching movies is okay, but they should be more focused on their like
See,
what they
now
want to
you are behaving like a IIT
do, a job.
professor.
No, I was. This is my. This is my first job actually. Like this is my like.
No, no, I know. That was just a joke. Don't mind me. Yeah, but I think it's a good suggestion for upcoming researchers, professors, and students. Uh,
You know that now there is a corona crisis, and
of course.
everyone is looking for this scientist to find the vaccine. No one is looking for like Ronaldo or some personality to find the vaccine. Now it is everyone is looking for the scientist only.
That is
So
true.
like if you see my novel, then my first page is that this novel is dedicated to all the scientists and researchers who work round the clock to make our life better. So
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. I think starting from uh, discovering fire or
right,
producing
right,
fire to
right.
wheels to growing food to industrial revolution to IT revolution, I think I agree with you.
Right, right. Because they are making our life comfortable. So at least we should acknowledge them. And there are some other professors like me also who are writing novels also. For example, there is one famous professor. He is called, maybe you know, Cal Newport.
Cal Newport, I know him very well.
So he has books like, for example,
I
I will
know.
just show you one of his book is
Yeah,
Deep.
Deep Work. This is
Ah,
actually my favorite book. Not one of.
okay.
This is my favorite book. So good they can't ignore you. That's
Right,
the
right.
latest that has come from him, and one of my favorite authors. Uh, yeah,
So these students need to read this kind of books also, apart from what they are doing now, because eventually see eventually you have to work 30-40 years, so that will like eventually help you like in the long run. So don't waste so much time, and that's the suggestion from an IIT professor.
awesome. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Pramit.
It was
and
great
and
chatting with you. And
MFL MFL team for like hosting me, and really I thank MFL for the effort they are making, and it's a like a great honor to be a guest of MFL.
thank
Very
you,
good.
Mayank. Thank you, Sanaya, Ayush, for hosting us all today. Bye bye then for today. Goodbye,
Okay then.
everybody.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.